Hey yo, what's happening? It's Dominic D'Angelo. It's Rumor and Innuendo, and I am here with Mr. Robert Karplis, WD Creative underscore ish. And Robert, we got some dynamite to talk about. How are you doing today, my dude? Oh, you're muted. You're muted.
No, you had muted me. I'm here. I'm
Oh,
talking. Can you hear me
there you
now?
go. Now I can
There
hear
we
you.
are. Tremendous. Best producer, all of wrestling
I did not
podcasting.
mute you, Robert.
You
You
did
muted
the
you.
thing. If I had the ability to mute myself, I would happily have muted myself for the majority of this last week of wrestling. But here we are. Happy Happy Wednesday. What are you doing? A Diet Coke? Read all of a sudden you're drinking a Diet Coke and sitting outside. Are you at a coffee shop drinking soda?
Yes, I am. Uh-oh, you're muted again, Robert. What's going on?
I was itching my nose.
Oh,
But
okay.
thanks. Uh, Say hi to the folks joining us in the chat.
Let's
The
say hi.
Nevers 5512 says, Happy after morning to the underboss Dom Dom and my rumor and innuendo tribal chief Robert Karplis. I acknowledge you.
Wow.
I'll take that. Wanna Breeze
Thanks,
says,
man.
Hello, RNI. Who else is excited for today's show? Wanna Breeze, you're a monster and I don't like you. Let's move on to Wrestling Old Head. I always like Wrestling Old Head. Good after morning, RNI. It's raining over here, but somehow I'm just so amped up, excited even. Y'all are monsters.
Wow.
You all are monsters. Willie Thornbrew says, Happy Wednesday, gentlemen. Looking forward to the Working Stiff Patreon. Dom, that's in your inbox. Have you uploaded that?
No, it'll be uploaded right after the show, though. Ooh.
Scott and I recorded it yesterday,
Oh,
and it's a hell of a show. It'll still be a hell of a show if and when Dom actually uploads it into the Patreon machine.
that's it.
Caspian just asking, hey, how's it going?
How's it going?
It's going better for me than it is for Dominic D'Angelo, who apparently is public enemy number one for our friend
Big
Dave
friend of the
Meltzer.
show, Dave
Scotty
Meltzer.
Meltzer's brother, Dave. I don't know if you're aware of this. Scott Meltzer's brother, I guess, does wrestling content.
Oh, what? He does now? Hmm.
Scott Meltzer's brother, Dave, apparently does wrestling content.
He has a
Yes.
bit of a newsletter, I think. Well, yes, Dave Meltzer went after me. I happen to say this,
Oh,
Robert.
before you go after that, I want to welcome Dre Owens. Says he signed up
Oh,
for the Working Stiff Patreon.
all right.
Here's the pro tip on the Working Stiff Patreon. Not only do we do we do a weekly show, Scott and I, every weekend. I do my own show on there called Something to Sports Entertainment with, which is kind of like this with Dom, just without Dom interrupting me while drinking his
What
Diet
do you
Coke.
mean?
But you also have the archive because before we were Working Stiff, we were Wrestle Roasts, and
Mm,
there are about 40 hidden roasts that aren't on the main feed that we only did on the Patreon because they were so offensive and terrifying that we were worried we were going to go ahead and get, straight up murder balled. But on the plus side, two of the individuals who have worked on those Working Stiff roasts are writing for the roast of Kevin Hart.
how about that?
So you're getting some halfway decent wrestling related comedy there. At the very least, I promise you it'll be funnier than whatever the hell Kill Tony had. Warner
Yes.
Breeze said, first Cornette, now Meltzer. Who's next? JR.
Oh boy.
I would gladly welcome a war with you and Jim Ross because I will. That's one instance where I'll take your side.
Oh, thanks. So you mean you might not take my side with Scott Meltzer's brother here?
Have you met Dave Meltzer in person?
Oh, a couple times, yes.
You can't like it, you kind of it's like fighting with one of those terracotta soldiers. He's a very nice man, but
He is
like
nice. Dude.
nice in a way where it's like not a ton going on.
I would have never got Terry Funk's phone number if it was not for Dave Meltzer. So,
That he just memorized off the top of his head.
dude, it
I
was
feel
so
like he's probably
funny.
good at reciting numbers.
I wrote him a War and Peace novel to pitch so I could get Terry Funk's phone number, and he literally just sent me the phone number. That was it.
Look, I've been a guest on Wrestling Observer before.
Oh,
One of their Alvarez's constant co-hosts is good close personal friend of mine, Mr. Lance Storm.
yes, that's true. It's very true. Well, this is what I had to say to the Twitter world last night.
X
Oh, okay.
X
I,
World.
I said, like him or not, it's indisputable Hulk Hogan is the most influential wrestler of all time. The discourse trying to argue otherwise is ludicrous, and to try to discredit him saying that he benefited from the time instead of he knew what the hell he was doing is asinine. Well, Dave had a response to that today, he said. Yet one historian after another has said differently in the last few days. Would Hulk Hogan make a list like this in the US now, let alone 44 years from now? Then he sends a message board link to a Japanese list of top 100 influential people. He says you can argue the point. Indisputable is a bad word to use since many historians would list several different names. Would you agree with Meltzer there, Robert?
Two things. One, that's funny. Random, unrelated question. I just saw Willie Thornbrew said, "You always thank Logan. Who's Logan? Logan is Mike Lawrence's son.
Yes.
So we always give a shout out to Logan at the end of every episode of Rumor of Something in Sports Entertainment with. I think your argument is that Hogan is indisputably the most famous wrestler.
Basically.
It is. This is the argument that I just, because this sparked obviously an argument with me and Mike Lawrence on. I tweeted. I sent him a picture of the tweet that you guys did, and he's like, "Well, he gave the Ricky Dozan piece." I'm like, "No, no, no. Hogan is the most influential wrestler. That's not saying he's the best wrestler."
Right.
The analogy that I made is Mickey Mouse is the most famous cartoon character in the world. Mickey cartoons suck.
Yeah.
So Hogan, if you watch the documentary, which a lot of it is WWE propaganda, but Hogan is one of those people that anybody on the planet, you show a picture of him, whether it's the 80s, the 90s, 2000s, 2010s, they're going to recognize who Hulk Hogan is. A reasonably prudent person, individual off the street, they're not going to recognize Ricky Dozan. They're going to think Ricky Dozan's name is Richard Dozan.
Yes.
Hogan became synonymous with wrestling in the way that Band-Aid is what you say instead of bandage. When they say in their mind, they still think it's WWF Hulk Hogan. That is who they picture. In the same way that if you name basketball, a large swath of the audience is still going to think Michael Jordan.
100%.
Michael Jordan, doesn't play. It's one of those things that Hogan became a broader cultural icon when you had a monoculture. And I talked about this with Scott Chapman a little bit on the Working Stiff Patreon. That's only exists on Dom's hard drive and nowhere else on planet Earth. But I said I was just coincidentally listening to the Rewatchables podcast, Bill Simmons' show, which I enjoy quite a bit. And he was talking about, they were doing an episode on Ghostbusters. And they said, it was 1984 in the monoculture was really peak, like everything was the best. So you had Ghostbusters, you had Beverly Hills Cop coming out, Jordan's about to get drafted, you've got Patrick Ewing at Georgetown, and he said, and Hulk Hogan wins this WWF title for the first time. And then you had Prince and Bruce Springsteen and Michael Jackson and Madonna all releasing music at the same time. So Hogan is part of that pop culture identity where if you're a kid of the late 80s or early 90s and you went to a TGI Fridays and on the wall there were pictures, it would be Marilyn Monroe and John F. Kennedy and James Dean and Hulk Hogan. So for that reason, Hogan is sort of the most influential wrestler. When people talk about Stone Cold Steve Austin, it's you are the most famous wrestler since Hulk Hogan. Arguably, the most famous wrestler was Gorgeous George, because at the time the monoculture there was he's the star of wrestling on television, and if you were watching it on the Dumont network, like everybody knew who Gorgeous George was. There's a tremendous clip that was circulating about a week or so ago where it was him wrestling Burt Lancaster, where his manager was Bob Hope. And the fact that Gorgeous George, Devin Dowling says it right there, he influenced Muhammad Ali. It's how long and how sustained that person is in that position at the top. Hogan transcended wrestling to become a popular culture figure in a way that nobody else had done in the U.S. And we're going to be very ethnocentric on that argument, that U.S. culture winds up creating global culture. And when an international star becomes an international star, it's because they became a hit in the United States. That is not a recent phenomenon. You look at the Beatles. The Beatles were wildly successful and popular across Europe, but it wasn't until they came over to the United States and they gained a foothold here that they became essentially a global brand. Not saying that's right, wrong, or indifferent. That's kind of the way that the world has operated. There are stars across popular culture that never broke through into the United States. The to me, one of the quintessential examples is Robbie Williams. So Robbie Williams is a guy that I keep being told is one of the biggest stars in the world. People in the U.S. didn't really know who. I know he was in a boy band. I know he had a one song, and it was Millennium or something like that. And then they just made a movie about him where it was his life, but as a monkey.
Oh, that movie.
I used to get this when I worked for the Panthers in the arena, and they would be like, "Oh, we got Kylie Minogue," and I was like, "Is that really that big of a deal internationally? Huge deal. U.S. somewhat of a blip on the radar, comparatively speaking, and in the wrestling world, that's absolutely the way that it operates." But for Meltzer, who's very much in that ecosystem, to him, it's like, oh, Hogan's not in the top 50 most influential wrestlers or top 40 most influential wrestlers. In the way, going back to that Beatles thing, is like, have you ever seen the movie Yesterday?
I think a long time ago.
It's the
The
one where they
musical
wake up and the
version?
Beatles don't exist.
Ooh, no, I saw a different one. I saw a
Okay,
different
you've
Beatles
invented
movie.
your own film, which I love. But the idea that they were like, well, that then people had never heard of the Beatles, and they're like, well, it's the same way people had never heard of Neutral Milk Hotel. Like, you can get really esoteric and really zero in on, well, one of the most influential and important wrestlers is, George Landos or something like that. It's
Yeah.
Landos, but
John Londos.
that's not John
Jim
Bradshaw,
Londos.
Layfield,
Jim
Jim
Londos.
Landis. But it's that idea of who winds up transcending and breaking through. The response back I would give to Meltzer, quite frankly, and this is the least fair one, and I don't love this, but there was another wrestling documentary that came out last week. It was a Shawn Michaels documentary.
Right,
It
right.
aired, I believe, on Peacock. Was a drop in the bucket. No one ever really spoke about it again. Hogan got a 4-part Netflix documentary that got full court press, and the sitting president of the United States came for a talking head interview. I would argue most of the folks watching this show here today, if they had to watch a Hogan match or a Shawn Michaels match, you're picking a Shawn Michaels match.
Right.
But an average person off the street, if you were to turn around in that weird hellscape coffee shop that you are existing in right now, I feel like most people would know who Hulk Hogan is more than they would know who Shawn Michaels is.
Well, I did respond to Meltzer. I said, I'd say different cultures in different countries. The names you listed previously are major. Wrestling wouldn't be there without them, but factor in the reach and growth of television, pop culture. Hogan is indisputable, household name, and I say that with Bruno in my top 3 faves. And I was just using Bruno as a means to give a gauge of my fandom. So,
Well, yes, but that's because you're in Pittsburgh, which is the Japan of
that's true.
Pennsylvania.
Yes. Correct. So yeah, I mean, and with Hogan too, he changed the landscape of the industry not once but twice. You think about it, the obviously WrestleMania, but then when he turned heel, it was another big deal. He launched a whole new kind of era of pro wrestling. So I mean, that's how I meant was Hogan is influential.
I think it's also challenging because and the Hogan Netflix documentary did a really nice job of highlighting that art versus artist piece, and that Hogan is an incredibly problematic figure.
Mhm.
Uh, it's insane how many asterisks and caveats you have to give to be able to even say that. I miss the good old days when Hogan was problematic because he was a liar in the business. He's the guy who, talked about Andre weighing 900 pounds and I didn't think he was going to do business and no one had ever slammed him and I feared for my life. And, or the I met a Make-A-Wish kid that died hours late, like all these crazy things that he would say. And then obviously everything that happened with the reality show and the ugliness of what came out with him and Linda, and then the ugliness of just the sex tape in general was such
Yeah.
a blight. And then the content of the language that he chose to use on there and what got out. And you continue to see this erosion of the mythology of Hulk Hogan. Ultimately, Bruce Pritchard made a really good point in the Netflix documentary where he said, you don't discuss politics, you don't discuss religion, because when you do that, you're automatically alienating a very large percentage of your audience.
Very much so.
John Cena is an absolute blank slate of a human being. We can all quantifiably say, without beyond a shadow of a doubt, John Cena breathes oxygen. That is the only confident thing. And I have met John Cena. I have worked with John Cena. The only thing I can confidently say is I have seen air go in and out of his lungs at a point in time. I can also say that he generally follows the laws of gravity.
That is true.
Don't know anything about the man as a person, and he does that by nature, so that he is that blank slate avatar. Hogan even talks about in the documentary making the decision to make his politics known in a very public way. And regardless of what side of the aisle you're on, when you go ahead and do that, you do run the risk of losing a percentage of your fan base, and you need to be okay with that.
And to circle back around to Michael Jordan, he infamously said, Republicans buy sneakers too, and so he stayed out of politics.
Right. Michael Jordan's a great example of the majority of what people know is he was a dick to his teammates. He definitely enjoyed gambling. Some suspect stuff happened with his father. Space Jam is a movie that exists.
I enjoy it. I'm a Space Jam fan. Actually,
Really?
Yeah, I love it. I mean, come on, I was like in 6th grade when it came out, so it was like at the peak of my.
Is it your favorite Wayne Knight movie?
No, Jurassic Park.
I was gonna say Wayne Knight secretly just hit after hit after hit.
Underrated in the
when
90s.
You realize that the dude went from Basic Instinct to Jurassic Park to Space Jam. What a world for Newman.
What a world for Newman indeed.
Never underestimate the plucky underdog. And speaking of plucky underdogs, we got an AEW program this evening, and their world champion, by God, if there's an underdog, he is the pluckiest.
Yes.
I'm so excited, and I just can't hide it.
Come on, Dave.
So excited, and I just can't hide it.
Yeah. Let's get down, Meltzer. Huh? Darby Allin versus Brody King tonight in Fairfax, Virginia. Robert, are you excited?
You played the music. You don't have to play it again. Look, the main event of this week's show happens to feature two individuals who were prominently featured in a company that neither one of us will publicly name. So
Yes.
I've had the opportunity to work with both of them. It's a weird match for them to go ahead and do. I get the idea that Darby Allin is he's here for a good time. He's not here for a long time. That's his methodology of being world champion. The bump that he took a week ago in his match with Tommaso Ciampa was designed to be like, look, I'm going to go give it my all. I'm not going to hold back. And if he dies, he dies. To continue in the Hogan sphere of now Rocky movies. Now he's going in there with one of the biggest guys on the roster who's not afraid to snap a dude in half. I wish they'd been pushing Brody a little better going into it. I feel like Brody and Bandito both had a lot of momentum. They both challenged for the world title. They both lost, and then they kind of petered out a little bit.
I mean, like, I'm kind of shocked it's happening this soon, to be honest, Darby versus Brody, because, yeah, I think there should be a lot more build to it. And I think if you did it in the appropriate manner, you could really make it a big deal, like at pay-per-view sake. Maybe not Double or Nothing, but maybe Double or Nothing. Like,
I don't love the fact that there's a lot of people, like Caspian says, I like Brody King. He's got a lot of potential as a star. I hope he gets the belt, but he probably won't.
Right.
He's, in a lot of ways, it's almost the Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn factor with Brody King. It's a dude who came up the right way. He worked his ass off on the indies. He's a compelling person, not just character, but as a person. He's someone you want to see succeed. So there's a section of the audience that's going to watch this tonight rooting for Brody King, wanting to see Brody King win when we spent all this time supposedly waiting and rooting for Darby Allin to win the world title. And instead, they gave him the world title for free. It feels like we're trying to give him as much of a fake run as possible until he loses it back to MJF at Double or Nothing.
And I don't think that's the right move to kind of double back like that either. At the same time, I think
I don't think putting the belt on Darby was the right idea. This was a huge miscalculation on the part of AEW in the short term because there was money in a Darby chasing to try to win the world title story.
Sure.
I think that people would have paid their hard-earned American dollars to take that, Meltzer, that to see Darby Allin win the world title. And when they did it for free in a Diesel Bob Backlund situation, I was a little taken aback. Look, I have said I was an unapologetic Diesel mark as a kid.
Yes, you were.
And I will never forget watching the episode of WWF Mania hosted by the great Todd Pettengill when they're like, you're never going to believe what happened last night at Madison Square Garden at a house show. And Diesel just won the world title. And I was
Did
like,
Todd Pettengill use his Archie Bunker impersonation when he told you this?
I don't remember if we used the Archie Bunker impression, but his line delivery of the first in your house, the you get the house.
Yeah.
I've used that more in my day-to-day life than I care to admit. But
I need you to make that in a sound drop on here.
let's not. You're not the best when it comes to producing.
Speaking of producing, that match with Darby and Brody is going to be hard hitting. And do you want to be hard hitting in the bedroom? Well, fellas, if your lady or your fella or that person that sends you an eggplant emoji at 2 a.m. is ready for better sex, then you should be too. That's where Blue Chew comes in. They have been on a mission for years to get you bricked up, build your confidence, and help you actually perform in the bedroom. Their new arousal boosting formula, Blue Chew Gold, is helping millions of men have better sex in 2026. While most ED meds only focus on blood flow, Blue Chew Gold goes further by combining 2 ingredients for blood flow with 2 ingredients for mental arousal and connection. So you're not just physically ready, you are actually in the mood. This type of innovation is why Blue Chew Gold is the #1 brand in erectile function. So we got a special deal for our listeners. Right now, when you buy 2 months of Blue Chew Gold, you get the 3rd month for free with promo code RUMOR. That's promo code RUMOR for BlueChew.com. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And hey, we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring the podcast.
So
Boom.
what's fun about that, guys, why that was so disconcerting and unsettling is Dom usually provides me the copy.
Yes.
It wasn't in the email, so
Correct.
I wasn't teed up to be able to do the Blue Chew ad, or else I would have had like 3 different instances, including I don't know why Meltzer was being such a dick. Speaking of,
Next time, Robert.
really, Awesome Sauce just dropped. I happened to look over and says off topic. MC Hammer was far better than Michael Jackson. Criminally speaking, yes. Going financially bankrupt is probably better than being accused of what Michael Jackson was accused of.
Never was into parachute pants.
I loved Hammer as a kid. I was in that, you know what it was? I was also in that sweet spot of Too Legit to Quit was everywhere. And when you were like 8, 9 years old, and that's the kind of hip hop it's going to be ubiquitous. You're going to hear it at every bar mitzvah. You're going to hear it at every camp party. He had his own cartoon. He's in Adam's Family Values. Yeah,
Man,
Hammer. Now he's in a commercial for one of those insurance things.
oh, I was gonna say, is it for like one of those where you poop in a box and send it out?
That's actually how they booked Dynamite.
Oh, is that what happened?
What else
Hey.
is set up for Dynamite tonight, Dom?
Yo, man, Robert, can you wait for this? It's Kevin Knight. He's taking on MJF, and he's defending that TNT Championship.
I know there's a world where people think like, oh, MJF's just going to win his title, and then he's going to hold all the belts. I'm fine to live in that world. To hell with Kevin Knight being
Whoa.
the TNT champion.
Whoa.
I like, you know why? Because I like him better in that tag team with Speedball. I think they had a little bit of momentum going on. I don't think Kevin Knight is ready for a singles run with that title, mainly because he's not a great promo. And when they put him in there with like MJF ate his lunch last week.
Sure, but I do think he's got potential as a promo. Good promo, right?
Again, you need time to get there. You don't take a kid off the street who's never acted and say, all right, you're going to be in this scene with Robert De Niro. Go.
Fair. I do like Kevin Knight's ceiling though.
So Devin Dowling points out something that was making the rounds of late. Said that they book Raw with ChatGPT.
Oh yeah, Robert. How do you feel about being replaced by AI potentially, allegedly?
If it's as bad as Raw was on Monday night with their lack of logic, then yes. I actually made a joke, not even knowing this was a thing, that a segment felt like it was booked by AI. That Joe Hendry segment, literally, I tweeted it out at the moment. I said, Joe Hendry and the Vision and the Street Profits, this segment was booked by AI.
That was my favorite segment of the night, Robert.
That sounds about right. That would appeal to you. Raw's lack of logic.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the time to go into it right now. I do go into it on the Working Stiff Patreon, which is sitting in Dom's in. But if I just keep reminding him, guys, he'll remember to post it.
Wait, what are we talking
it's like
about?
telling grandma to take her pills.
What was this?
Dre Owens says that Kevin Knight will lose and join the Hurt Syndicate. I like the theories out there that Apollo Crews will join the Hurt Syndicate. I think the world of Apollo Crews, and I think he's a guy who's got a lot of talent. And it's unfortunate that sometimes the myopic booking as well. We'll just put all the black guys together in a black guy stable, which is regressive and stupid. But on an episode where we're talking about Hulk Hogan, regressive and stupid is kind of par for the course.
What was Apollo Crews' name outside of WWE? It's an awesome name. Something Yuha Nation or something. What is it?
Uha Nation, yeah.
Great name. What a great name.
Great name, great performer. Someone I really hope to see on my television screen again. We're thankful to be on whatever screen you're watching us on, whether it's on your TV or your iPad or your laptop or your telephone. You can catch us on a plethora of platforms, including the WW Creative _ISH X account, the at Dominic D'Angelo X account, the at SE Scoops X account, and on the YouTube machine on Studio One Sports and Podcast Heat, even though you have the Studio One Sports bug blocking the Podcast Heat bug, like Conrad sometimes blocks out the sun. We love Conrad. He's the best. So on behalf of the man who's about to go post the Working Stiff Patreon as soon as we're done with this, Dominic D'Angelo, I'm Robert Karpolis. Best of luck in your future endeavors.
Wait, what am I supposed to do again?
Damn it, Dom.
Help me out, Dave Meltzer, please.
Shh.